Good morning. May your day be as calm as the sunrise at sea. Dear sisters and brothers, the book of Other Places by Keanu Reeves and Chinton Mayville is a story about grappling with the burden of one's own immortality. It adheres to the conventions of fantasy and thriller, but also doesn't shy away from reflections on the nature of good and evil. This summer, we might feel tired of the pain in the well. Dear reader, come even more so before I learn to get completely confused. Tennessee Williams wrote of Gore Vidal. He taught me so much and motivated me to read writers I might never have known. His intellect was sharp and voracious, and so was he. He was also beautiful. Well, he was also venomous, though I avoided his sting more than others. He taught me the value of goodness, instinct, and innocence, mainly because he possessed none of these qualities. Study both the lack of qualities in people and their abundance. Carl Jung spent his life mapping the human psyche, but his first maps were created in the shadow of his own childhood. Born in 1975 in Casville, he grew up in a home that seemed torn in two. His father, a clergyman with no convictions, moved like a ghost during sermons, speaking of God with the voice of a man who feared he had lost him. His mother, Emily, carried a split within herself, a bright, competent woman by day and by night, a disturbing presence who, Jon claimed, sometimes spoke with a completely different voice. For him, this was no metaphor. This child learned early that the human mind could be more than one entity at a time. Dreams came to him as messages, not fictions. At the age of 3, he saw in a dreams a vision of an underground chamber with a golden throne and a monstrous, one-eyed figure on it. When he told his parents, they recoiled. For Jan, however, this dream became a seed proof that the unconscious has its own architecture, its truths older than other stories. The self then bears them. His early school years were marked not by consistent success but by breakdown. After being knocked unconscious by another boy, Young contracted what doctors considered a neurological disorder. He fainted whenever he faced the demands of his studies. For months, he lived in a twilight of avoidance until he heard his father lament that they could not afford a defenseless son. This overheard sentence seemed like a command. The fainting spell stopped. He never forgot this lesson. The psyche bends under forces it cannot bear to lose. Medicine led him to psychiatry, and psychiatry to the Burgherzli Clinic in Zurich under the supervision of Eugen Bleuler, where madness wasn't simply confined but observed, studied, and in the Young's case, listened to. He spent time with schizophrenic patients who spoke in riddles and visions, and instead of dismissing them as broken minds, he heard in them echoes of myth. The same archetypes that inspired ancient tales lived in the patient's delusions. Then Freud appeared. The meeting in 1907 lasted 13 hours, immediately recognizing the shared obsession with the invisible machinery of the mind. For a time, Freud saw Jung as the heir to psychoanalysis. Jung, however, could not bear the cage of Freud's singular doctrine that all paths lead back to sexuality. He believed the human psyche was vaster, interwoven not only with personal memories but also with a collective legacy, patterns, and symbols older than history itself. The rift between them was both an act of survival and rebellion. The years after the separation were not years of triumph. Jung plunged into what he later called a confrontation with the unconscious. He surrendered to visions that came unbidden, rivers of blood flooding Europe, and bearded figure named Philemon, who became his inner guide. Worlds that vacillated between dream and reality. He feared madness, yet he pursued it deep within himself. From these visions emerged the Red Book, his private gospel of images and symbols, hidden for decades because it was too harsh to reveal to the world. The war confirmed what his visions had whispered. The collective shadow he saw within himself spread across Europe, devouring nations. Jung's work on the shadow, the parts of the self we refuse to see, was not the academic abstraction but a direct response to the barbarism he witnessed. He understood that a man who does not confront his shadow will be ruled by it, and that the same law applies to civilization. Later in life, he returned to themes of origins, dream life, archetypes, the invisible unity of all things. He traveled to India, Africa, the American Southwest, not as a tourist, but as a seeker, tracing the form the human spirit takes, stripped of modern disguises. Even in his 80s, dreams spoke to him with images he could not yet fully decipher. Carl Jung died in 1961 at his home on Lake Zurich. The lake may have been calm this morning, but his work left ripples that continue to move to this day. He dedicated his life to demonstrating that the unconscious is not a dungeon to be feared, but a cathedral, and that entering its depths is an encounter not only with what we have forgotten, but with what we have not yet known. The James Webb Space Telescope, another problem, has just made what may be one of the most groundbreaking discoveries in human history. Evidence of intelligent civilization on a planet near Earth. This discovery could change everything we know about life in the universe. In the meantime, let's stop at the moon. Don't tell me the moon is shining. Show me the glint of light on broken glass. That's what Anton Chekhov wrote about the moon. The idea of building a city on the moon is quickly becoming part of a real world planning and engineering. Space agencies and private companies are working on detailed missions aimed at creating a permanent human presence beyond Earth. The moon's south pole is an ideal location with areas of almost constant sunlight and craters that could contain frozen water. This water could be processed into drinking water, breathable oxygen, and even rocket fuel. Lunar habitats would need to be airtight and protected from harmful radiation and meteorite impacts. Engineers are designing domes and underground tunnels that could regulate temperature and pressure in an atmosphereless environment. Power would come from solar energy systems distributed around the base, and food could be grown in indoor hydroponic farms. Robotic and autonomous systems would handle hazardous, hazardous tasks like mining and repairs. In time, and a functioning lunar city could become a launching pad for deeper missions to Mars and beyond. Life on the moon would mark the beginning on humanity's expansion into the solar system and force us to rethink life, survival, and cooperation in entirely new ways. Beloved, we cannot be like Saint Bernard, who had 12 steps to perfect humility. Therefore, I'm sure that once you reach the 12th step of humility, you will be very proud of your humility. In today's busy lives, people are so absorbed in their own affairs that they often say formally, whenever you need it, just call, I'm here for you. But the truth comes out when you truly need someone's support and there is no one standing firm by your side. And if for some reason even that one trustworthy person backs down, a deep sense of helplessness quietly nests deep within. That's why it's so important to build enough strength within yourself so you don't have to wait for someone else's support in difficult times. This strength only emerges when you start loving and caring for yourself. When you start thinking for yourselves, you also begin to recognize your weaknesses and shortcomings and gather the courage to correct them. Standing up for yourself means standing up for your dreams. It means trying to fulfill the desires and aspirations you've been putting off due to fear, doubt, or circumstances. This is the moment when you give your deeply held dreams another chance. And believe me, when you take a step for yourself, an incredible sense of satisfaction and joy blossoms is in your heart. Ultimately, by standing up for yourself, you demonstrate that you know your worth. You understand how unique you are and how crucial your dreams are. And it is this self respect and self confidence that gives you the strength to face any storm. True power lies not in mastering others, but in mastering yourself. Because ultimately, legacy is not the land you conquer, it's the self you conquer within yourself. Freedom is not so much a birthright as an achievement. We born with the freedom to choose, but how we exercise those choices makes us either slaves or free people. This kind of inner freedom is the last thing a person achieves. And it is precisely what St. Paul calls the glorious freedom of the children of God. In his poem titled Testament, Zbigniew Herbert wrote, Polish poet, I bequeath to the four elements what I had for a short reign to fire. Thought, let fire bloom to the earth. I loved too much my body, a barren seed, and to the air, words and hands and longings. These are superfluous things. What remains a drop of water. Let it circulate between earth and sky. Let it be a transparent rain, a fern of frost, and snowflake let it, having never reached heaven to the valley of tears of my earth, returns faithfully pure. Joy, patiently crushing the hard soil. I will soon return to the four elements what I had for a short reign. I will not return to the source of peace. Quote end. South Africa is the only country in the world where you can see both elephants and penguins in the natural habitat. I encourage you to travel this summer not to Greece, but to the hot south of Africa. Share to inspire. I wish you a pleasant and peaceful evening, within killing time, a night of sweet dreams.